What's happening, party people? Welcome to Blues Lawyer Confessional. This is Jack, and with me today is Dave Potts from Song Notes. Thank you for joining me, Dave.
Thank you. Yeah, I say Song Notes by David Potts.
Song Notes by David Potts.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Welcome to
yeah.
the show. It's so great to see you again. For those of you who don't know, which is probably all of you, I think every single one of you in our viewing audience does not know that Dave and I used to live together in college. Dave, what was that experience like before we talk about what you do and why it's so cool?
Yeah, it's funny because that was the year I had just graduated, I believe, and it was your senior year
That was
at university.
2003, 2004.
Yeah, yeah. So it was my first year out of college as a college graduate, and I was thinking about it this morning when I couldn't sleep, like in the middle of the night. I was like, I had 4 jobs that year, and I was just trying stuff out, and it was all like a resistance to get a job for the man behind a desk, and it all led to ultimately where I was going. But that was a time when I was like a couple years into learning guitar, so it's fun
And
to
in our houses, so we lived deep details. It really just fun for me and maybe you, but we lived in a row of townhouses where like multiple groups of friends were together in adjacent townhouses. And there's a lot of guitar playing, a lot of music happening in our houses. What was your favorite music memory from that time, other than you sitting in your room with the door closed, transcribing
yeah.
songs on guitar?
That's an easy one because it was this might have been before we properly lived together, but there was a party that was like the next block over, and me and Steve and Ed basically were able to procure a gig at that party. And it was by party and gig, I mean like, hey, do you want to play guitar on the patio while everyone's drinking from a keg in the backyard, right? And so we had like a couple weeks to prepare, and it was all cover songs. I actually found the set list. It was Wonderwall and Hey Joe and
Oh, so good.
some Pearl Jam song and some Bob Marley song and some Sublime song. And I remember we were practicing we were practicing a lot all week in the front yard. And I remember the day of the show. I don't know if you knew this, but there was a house, a couple townhouses down with the guy who was he used to be in, was it Continuous Play or the Walk?
Yeah, both of those are bands that existed in College Park.
He was like an elder, and at that time he was probably like in his like late 20s, which to me was like old man.
A million years old.
Yeah, but I remember he said like, "Oh, how are you guys going to plug in?" And we were like, long story short, we're like, "Wait, what?" Like we didn't have guitars with plugins, or like we didn't know what we were doing. And fortunately, he had all this gear. He just let us borrow. He was like the angel of guardianship saving that day. So that was like the best memory, because that was like one of the best experiences, just playing the songs. We were probably not great in the grand scheme of things, but we were probably the best we had ever been. And it just getting off the stage, I felt like a high of like, so it was a good one.
Playing in front of people, that momentary fantastic nature of it, I think live music is really awesome. Like I think now, because we're in like everyone's in their own studio, like playing, recording stuff and editing things, and it's perfect. But that like live experience when you're working with the crowd, it's that moment in time. And I never want to listen to live recordings because they're always disappointing, but in that moment it's such a delight, and I'm glad you remember that. I enjoyed greatly. We had a house party in the house, and my band was playing there, and then the cops showed up, and then everyone went hiding. That was my favorite. Last question about things that people don't care about that I'll probably edit out is, who is the best guitar player in the houses?
Oh man. Well, okay. When Ed moved in, Ed was like, blew my mind because he could do soloing and lead guitar stuff. Right. Tucker was a really good, like, when I met you guys were all just great guitar players. And I felt like the new kid on the block who had just started learning a few years, like a year or two before that. And I could play like One Sweet World by Dave Matthews by like randomly moving individual fingers. So, I mean, I looked up to all of you, and then meeting you too, Jack, like you and Tucker and Ed were like, big. I hope to be there one day as far as playing.
Oh, it was just a self-aggrandizing, self-serving question. Thank you. I appreciate. I think personally, I really enjoyed Ed's guitar stylings. I appreciate your singing, especially. I thought that was really cool. I remember I saw you guys. I think you and Ed were playing at a coffee shop. It may have been like College Perk.
Yeah.
And
I remember we played there too.
It's like Dave can sing.
Thank you.
I don't know. You talked about getting started as a new guitar player, kind of when you're 21-ish age. You have a YouTube channel and a website, Song Notes by Dave Potts, and because you got your 10-year anniversary, where you saw that maybe 10 years ago, and then what it's turned into today.
Yeah, sure. So, 10 years ago, it was actually 11 years ago, I started the website. And the website was really just a way for me of taking these, you mentioned earlier, this notebook of songs I was putting together back in college. And this is just me typing up the notes and tabs and, little licks and fills and lyrics to all the songs I was learning. And I'm sure, as you or anyone else who's learned a song knows, like you give 10 different teachers the task of like writing up Hotel California notes. Yeah, we can agree on the lyrics, but like, how do you play this lick or that lick? And not to use Hotel California, but take any song, like you can approach lots of things slightly different ways, right? And especially if you want to like make a slightly intermediate or beginner version compared to what, the studio recording is. So my point is, as I learned guitar, I learned like there's tons of teachers in the forums back then, and then eventually YouTube, but they all teach it differently. I'm going to learn this Jack Johnson song, but I'm going to put together a version that I can play that sounds good, and I want to like not forget what I did. So I would write up my notes, and I kind of got in the habit of like writing up my own curated notes. And I just kept at it. I built a website, and it was really nothing more than me just sharing what I was doing anyway. I was kind of a nerd for web and computer stuff, so it was like a fun just thing to explore. And then I found out YouTube existed a year later. I put a few just like playthroughs and demonstrations on there. After about 15 videos, I took a break for a few years, but then we moved to Austin, and for some reason I just started, I think my kids were out of that like baby stage, like my youngest daughter. I had more time. I was sort of following her around when she was, toddling around the house. And I was starting to learn songs again. I'm like, oh, I should pick up my YouTube channel and get going with it. And then I kind of got regular with posting. I just did once a week, whatever I was learning that week. I just stuck with it, kind of just like heading into the forest kind of blindly, to be honest. After a couple of years of like, I started to adapt slowly. Like people would ask, how do you play B minor? Or I would get tired of explaining how to play B minor. I'm like, I should make a video explaining how to play B minor, or take any non-song type of lesson. I started adding those to my library as well of lessons. So I kind of do like half songs, like a song tutorial, and then half like not just how to play individual chords, but what I'm working on. Or here's this, like last week I did a Doc Watson. He does this, sort of bluesy, bluegrassy finger style that I can't do. Like he's so good, but I put together like an inspired by his song of Deep River Blues. And I think, oh, this is cool. I think this is worth sharing. People have requested Doc Watson from me in my community. So I put that lesson out there, and that's just one example. So it's been mainly acoustic, classic rock, classic country, some folky stuff, some pop stuff, mostly acoustic, though in the past year kind of gotten into electric a little bit more, but I'm not as strong there. So it's a bit of a me finding like, what does my audience, what does my audience want? So anyway, that's kind of it. Just stuck with it.
I know when I was learning guitar, I think the biggest breakthrough, and I think for most people, it's, learning the songs is what makes it fun, right? Because you're sitting there playing like a lesson, it's not cool, right? But if you've got a song that you like, and someone's showing it to you in an easy to follow way that resonates, that's a great way of learning. A lot of our audience seem maybe folks who've been around guitar or had a guitar for a long time, and maybe you're interested in guitar but haven't necessarily sat down to learn and get better. What do you find is like Dave's secret trick to getting better at guitar? How does one practice, or what does one focus on to level up from maybe beginner or longtime beginner to intermediate beginner?
Number one is you got to get a guitar in your hand. Like don't put it off and pick it up once a month, or if you can get it just a few minutes a day, that's good, right? Once it's in your hand, I think paying attention to the songs that this is my personal experience. I don't know how you relate, Jack, is like songs kind of come and go from my orbit. Like a couple weeks ago, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Tears for Fears. Like my daughter's into it. I kind of got into it, and I started like watching Rick Beato videos on it. And I'm like, man, this song is awesome. The chords are on my wall. In the last couple of weeks, that song has kind of like left my orbit. It's not kind of like pulling me towards it anymore. And I say that because when you're learning and you're trying to learn stuff, like just paying attention to like, what is a song that you just can't get enough of, you're listening to day after day. And this might change, every week or two, and that's fine. But like when something is sort of in your head, that's when, that's a kind of like a wind at your back in my experience. Like go after that song when it's fresh. If something feels like a chore to practice, like I love the idea of that song, but it's not really like in my head anymore, let it go. Like look for a new one. So I think you kind of have to be aware of like what songs are calling to you at any moment. And then the other thing is don't feel I wouldn't want folks to feel compelled that they have to learn the entire song if they're going to learn anything. Like sometimes like learning the intro like alone to a song can be like give you all the satisfaction you need, and that's okay. You know, you don't need
Yeah.
to have this completionist guilt. And I'm sure everyone's different, and maybe this is advice to myself, but you know, like myself of old.
Yeah, I've always found that again, I never liked playing covers. That was never a thing that brought me joy. But I did like playing a riff from a song that lets people know, hey, I know this song. But also part of that is through playing a riff or a lick or a lead line, you're teaching yourself the skills that you need to play something like that. So then later, when you go write your own thing, you pull that out of your toolbox. And it's like, oh, this is the kind of thing that I want to do here. I'm going to apply it in this situation with this key or maybe in this position, and now it's like my own thing. And so no one can say you did that intro to this song wrong because it's my song. That's one of my favorite things about writing my own songs is that if someone didn't like that was just what I wrote. Like it's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
Our closing line is less fiddling, more playing, and part of that is less knob turning, less like concern over what guitar it is. Just like have it make sounds, and then your fingers will eventually get used to that instrument, and things should get easier. You noted a moment ago that you've been playing obviously acoustic for a while, and you got an electric guitar recently. I
Yeah.
guess what's led you to checking out the electric, and what do you see as challenges that you faced in moving to what I think is an easier instrument? But what do you think?
Yeah, I got it. I think a year into COVID, and I honestly don't really remember like what my exact headspace was. I think for like the last 10 years, I'm like, oh, I should get an electric one day. And I think that it was that summer, the summer after COVID started. My wife took the kids to like visit her parents for a week, and I was going to join them a week later, but I had a week by myself, and I'm like, I should get a treat myself to something. So I went to Straight Music, local music store from your last
There
video.
you go.
You mentioned Guitar Center, but I love Straight Music. I tried out a few. I went a few different times, and that's the one I got right now. The challenge I ran into though is I would pick it up and I would just kind of like do the acoustic things that sounded good, like strum an open chord, add to like sus2 or sus4, and maybe fiddle on one of the notes, and immediately I'm like, man, this doesn't. It's not giving me the same. Yeah, all the tricks that work good with that like don't work on my electric. Like and also the whole world of electronics and amps and knobs and pedals and all those settings and the hum and then the string noise and the pickups, and I'm like, man, I don't know. There's so much I didn't know, and it was immediately overwhelming. I did make a video like a year ago. It was like 10 things I wish I knew when I got this guitar, and I'm glad I made that because it kind of captured all that stuff at that time. And I'm actually, I think, I should do that this pretty soon, I think, is like make another follow up, because I think in the last year, just through sticking with it and at least once a month doing something with it as far as getting it into a lesson, I felt a lot better about it. And part of that's coming from trying out new gear. Like I got like a little preamp that goes into that lets me connect to my computer, my iRig, and I have in there right now, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little New X MP3 MIDI plug. And then I have the Spark, I have two of the Spark amps, and then I have my Boss Katana. All of those things I named, I have things I like and don't like, but together they've helped me like narrow in on like having fun with that guitar. And it's like I'm not a bilingual person, but like it reminds me of what speaking another language might be like, where you kind of have to like shift your mindset a little bit, and then once you get in that groove, like it's like enjoyable in a totally different way. So I don't know if that resonates or
that makes sense. And I think that the products you named, again, we don't have any sponsorship. Those are all good examples of where modern amp modeling technology provides good value to new electric guitar players, where you can get kind of the in the style of sound without having to go drop a couple $1,000s on a Marshall stack and then deciding that's too big for your room. One thing that I really enjoy from electric guitar is that feeling of like the vibration and the speakers kind of blowing at you, and when you hit big chords, and just it's a similar feeling as when you have a strumming on an acoustic and the body of the guitar is vibrating against you and you feel that tactile feedback. But when you hit something that would have been just normally jangly like E minor, and it's just rattles the house, and that power is really impossible to recreate with any other instrument. And so that to me is really special.
There's seasons with all these instruments, as I'm sure you know what I mean. Like I haven't really touched my ukulele for more than a minute in like a long time. the mandolin I like recently picked up when I was waiting for my daughter to brush her teeth before bed. And I'm like, I'm going to figure out the minor scale starting on the open bottom string. And like, I did. And it was like fun just to riff over a few notes. And I'm like, man, I should tune this because I haven't tuned it since I got it. And it sounds okay. But, it's fun to have these little options. So
pivoting slightly.
Yeah.
Dave, if you could join any band, past or present, what band would that be?
The fanboy in me wants to just pick my favorite bands and like make up an excuse. So like,
I'd like to drop you in as the a guitar player in this band. Like, and you've got to be a functional member. You can't just be like playing the cowbell in the corner. You've got to be, riffing along with them. What band are you getting dropped in?
Okay, my time travel answer would have been like The Doors, and I would just tune my guitar down and I would just strum rhythm, and it would be fun. I think that the more recently, country rock is a genre I'm into with newer artists. So like the Turnpike Troubadours or Midland are two bands that do country, but there's a rock vibe to it. But there's a lot of like steel guitar and fiddle and great songwriting. And I feel like I could hang rhythmically, you know what I mean, with any of those songs. And I can't sing well enough to do background vocals, but like that kind of music, I just never get sick of listening to, especially with those bands whose instrumentation I really like. Now that's I don't know if that's a lame answer.
Those are good answers.
But yeah, that's kind of.
I'm proud of you that you have any answers. I think a lot of people would freak out. But I don't know what to say. I don't know. What's next on the docket for Song Notes? Holiday season is here. What can our viewers and your viewers expect to see this holiday season?
I'm completing a holiday songbook right now. And by that, I just mean I'm adding probably 2 or 3 Christmas songs to it. I have a handful of Christmas songs from prior years. Christmas songs are generally public domain, which is good for copyright. That means I don't have to worry about the man. So I'm going to be working on that. I'm kind of always packaging up courses. Courses are a new thing on my website, and it's very, very, very new. There's not that much there yet. But I brought up the B minor example earlier in this video, right? All those sort of evergreen topics, whether it's practical music theory or reading music or getting started with the blues or getting started with lead guitar or strumming, all those kind of topics that are going to come back time and time again. I just am excited to finish carving out a spot on the website where all those are just easy to find and there, so I can get to the weekly lessons and exploring songs and riffs and point folks back to those other lessons. So all that's coming. Check out songnotes.net. That's the website. And the promo code thing you mentioned, should I drop it here?
You can say, what is the discount that they will get from the code that is now flashing on the screen and in the description below? So
for December 2023, another thing I want to do is give out a special code in honor of this conversation, Jack. So this code will give anyone who signs up 50% off for the lifetime of their membership on songnotes.net. So I offer monthly and annual plans. And as long as you're a member, if you sign up using this code, you get half off forever. So it's a great little promotion there, and use the code before the end of December while it's active.
Cool. The code is on the screen and in the description. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your time. It's good talking to you and seeing you as always. Less fiddling, more playing.